Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Real Talk Gen X, Y, and Race in America, a virtual conversation between young women of color as they navigate through the emotional impact of systemic racism following recent racial injustices. This discussion is presented by Shades Magazine, celebrating all women of color, an online publication and information and resource site sponsored by Exceptional Women in Publishing, also known as EWIP. My name is Michelle FITZHUGH-CRAIG, and I am the founder of Shades Magazine, and I'm the president of EWIP Board. Before we get started, I'd like to get some housekeeping matters out of the way. Our producers have muted your mic. However, if it is not, please be sure to mute your microphone now. For those new to Zoom, you can find the tools bar at the top of your screen or hovering your mouse over your screen. There you can find the chat room and other tools you may need or want during today's discussion. If you have comments or questions for today's guest, you may place them in the chat and they will be read by today's host. Please be sure to include your name and city. You can also ask your question anonymously. Feel free to disable your video if you choose. We also have a lot of viewpoints that will be shared today, so a reminder to be respectful of all guests and all participants. And we invite you to along the way, if you want to join the discussion or have something more to say than just a question, just let us know in the chat. It is important to note Shades Magazine and its fiscal sponsor, Women in Periodical Publishing, Exceptional Women in Publishing, is a non-political, nonpartisan organization, and as an entity does not support or endorse any political candidates or campaigns. The opinions, viewpoints, and or personal endorsements expressed in any published print, audio, or video content like today's session are those of the individual only and do not necessarily represent the views of Shades Magazine or EWIP. We are recording today's session for viewing on the Shades website and on our YouTube channel next week. Now let's begin. I'm going to turn it over to our today's host and moderator, who is our only host and moderator, who has been around since the start in July. We were just talking about that. Sydney Clark, a New Orleans native, is a multimedia freelancer and current graduate student at the University of Maryland, College Park. She's studying multi-platform journalism. Sydney also is a contributing editor for Shades Magazine. Welcome, Sydney.
Thank you, Michelle, and I want to officially welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today we're talking about the intersection of spirituality, faith, religion, and culture. After a year like no other in modern history, our young women are going to discuss how and if a higher power guides them on a daily basis, has helped them survive the last year, and the hope that they hold on to as we move into 2021. So I'm going to introduce our guests, and then after I say your name, you can just give a little wave to everybody. So today we have SHARKISHA CUMMINS, who's a stay-at-home mom of two, an aspiring writer and social worker living in Rochester, New York. Welcome, SHARKISHA. We have Asifa Akbar, is a certified life coach and author studying to become, well, she already graduated, a licensed practitioner of immigration and refugee law, living in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. We have MARIAN Cook, who's a Master of Fine Arts student at the University of Southern California, and she's living in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And then finally, we have Tayler Harrison, who's a visual artist and writer based in New Orleans, Louisiana, and Baltimore, Maryland. And we're going to jump right in because we have lots to talk about. And so I usually start with some type of opening question to all the panelists, but today I think it would be appropriate if we do some sort of reflection. And so I found one that I think is applicable to basically all people, no matter what religion or what type of spirituality you practice. I think it's applicable to everything. And so this is called the Daily Examen, and it's a spiritual exercise from the Jesuits. They're a Catholic religious group. They're all man, they're all male. And so they do this twice a day as like a group, as a society. They do it at noon and then at the end of the day. And so I think because, you know, a lot of us are at midday or around midday now, I think it would be appropriate to do it. And so there are 5 steps to this examine. And the first is become aware of God, or insert higher power here, presence. And then the second step is to review the day with gratitude. The third is to pay attention to your emotions. The fourth is to choose one feature of the day and pray from it. And then the fifth is to look forward to tomorrow. And so I just want to take just a couple of minutes, not even a couple of minutes, just a couple of seconds, just to center ourselves and just have us prepare as we talk about spirituality, faith, and culture. And so we can just center ourselves and just become aware just right now, just for a minute. Think about some things that you are grateful for today in particular, and pay attention to how you're feeling right now. Pay attention to how you woke up this morning, what thoughts were going through your head, and pay attention and think about the future, and especially tomorrow. What are you looking forward to? And so I want to call on a few people just to review just simply what you're grateful for today, and anyone can start us off.
I don't mind starting us off. I think for me, this year we've lost 3 people to COVID in our family. So I think right now I'm really thankful for health for my family. I'm thankful that during this pandemic, our finances haven't been affected. Sorry. So those are things that I'm really thankful for.
Thank you, SHARKISHA.
So I can go next. I'm just very thankful for a warm, safe home. Where I live, we're actually just going into our second, we're in the first week of our second lockdown. So, you know, I woke up this morning and I could hear the cold wind blowing, like gusts of wind outside my window. So I'm just very grateful to have a warm, safe place to live.
I'm grateful for my family as well. My sister is pregnant, and she actually got COVID while she was pregnant, and thankfully she came out of it, you know, okay. And she recently had a checkup, and her and the baby are doing great, and she's going to deliver soon. So that's what I'm most grateful for.
I can go. I am really grateful to be around so many supportive people. I really feel like I have an abundant network of just people who really care about me and support anything that I want to do, or any vision that I have. So I'm grateful for my family and my friends.
That's great. I think one thing that I am grateful for is just having a roof over my head, especially as it's getting cold up here. Like this past week it snowed and it's been in the 30s for the past couple of nights. So just thankful for that I have a roof over my head. And even though I'm living away from home, I really live with some amazing people who support me in every capacity. So I'm really thankful for my housemates that have gotten me through this really tough semester, and that I can, you know, be here today and just say thank you, Lord, for everything that you've done for me. So my second question is, we're going to go around, and first we're going to list 3 words that describe 2020 for you. And then if anyone feels called, they can expand on those words and go into more detail. So let's see, Asifa, what are your 3 words for us? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Well, the first word that pops into my mind is resilience. And another word I would say is productivity. And a third one is faith. So, and if you'd like me to explain each one, I can. But
Awesome.
well, I mean, resilience. Obviously, we've all had to hone our resilience skills because of this global pandemic that we're facing. And productivity for me personally, it's been a very productive year despite the global circumstances and my own personal circumstances. And faith is something that something that I just found, especially this year, underscore that it's something I have to always keep. It's just what makes me keep going. So
thanks so much for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Who would like to go next?
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Oh, I hope I'm not interrupting anyone, but I was honestly, when Asifa said productivity, I was like, I feel that a lot, because part of what helped me get through this year is always having something to do, whether it was like work, school related, or personal related. I just kept my mind off of just the chaos around me. And I would say I'm just gonna say light, but it's part of like a phrase. But light, I was just able to, even though everything was so chaotic and just really terrible this year, I was still able to find light in that darkness. There were moments of positivity and happiness, and when they did appear, I really cherished them. And honestly, I'm struggling on my third word right now, but I would have to say I'm grateful. My family's finances weren't affected. I didn't lose my home, and for a lot of people that wasn't the case. So that's something, I feel very fortunate. Didn't happen to me. So yeah.
I can go. I'm not gonna lie, the first thing that came to my mind was anxiety. I feel like this year I experienced heightened levels of anxiety, which I also feel like brought me closer to my spiritual connection to God, because that was the only thing that I had to like lean on. So anxiety was definitely something that I thought about when thinking about this year, but also clarity and growth. I feel like I went into this year praying for clarity, and I got that times 10. And I thought it would come in like a cute little package. And it really, like, I became clear on a lot of things in a way that I didn't think, which also led to a lot of growth. And I felt like I was pushed into growth and experienced some growing pains. But I think that this year was like very important for that, and just to expand and grow.
I'm so glad you said that. Definitely I can relate to the growing pains and, kind of just like life hitting you in the face sometimes. And, sometimes, well, I think a lot of times that's okay because it forces you to adapt and forces you to like make a move. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And then Sharkisha.
I think one of the things for me for sure was fear. There were so many changes and so many unknowns, and still there are a lot of fear, a lot of unknowns, and I just wasn't sure how I was going to be able to navigate those, not really having my full support system because of, social distancing and having to do a lot of it on my own. And from there I can go empowered because I learned like so much about myself throughout this process, and so much about what I'm capable of doing, and like how far I can actually like push myself. The third one is going to be patience, because I have never really been a patient person, but you have to kind of give up this level of control and just trust that things are going to work out the way they should work out, or the way they need to work out, regardless of how you feel about it. So I've learned that, like, just to be patient with myself, be patient with the process, be patient with this life, just be patient, because we can't control everything, and this is showing us that, like, so those are my 3 words.
So I think my 3 words are patience for sure. Another one is gratitude. My mom is really big on gratitude, and we talk about it all the time. And then my last one would have to be surrender. There were a lot of times this year, like, I really just felt, inadequate and just like not myself and not confident. And so, like, I think was really like a word that struck out to me, because it's just like, I'm just giving, I'm just like letting go and letting God type thing. So just like, I can't do this alone. Like, this is all I have to give. Like, I'm just, I'm putting my hands up and saying, okay, you got this, God, just like take it away from me type thing. So definitely surrender for me. And so our next question is going to go kind of back in time. So think about the days when you were younger and, your family life. Like, was spirituality and faith a big part of your family? And if so, like, what type of traditions did y'all have? So let's start with that one before I do my next one to follow up. And anyone can go.
I'll start. I basically, since City knows, I grew up in church. My mom is a minister, and so church was like a really big part of our life. And I grew up Baptist, but I went to Catholic school for most of my life, and kind of I learned kind of 2 different spiritual experiences. So I feel like as I got older, it was really important for me to develop my own meaning of religion and spirituality and create a practice that resonated with me. But I do feel like my parents really gave me a solid foundation in my spiritual practice.
That's awesome.
I can go next. Growing up, there was a lot, we grew up in the church. I mean, I think we went like 3 times a week. There was like prayer group. There was like, they had like a class for us kids, like a Bible study class. And then there was like your regular Sunday. And I think growing up, I don't really think I understood it in a way that I could really appreciate it. It was just something that my grandmother made me do. So I don't think I understood it or had a real appreciation for it until I was a little older, like in my teens. I think there was a point where when my grandmother got sick, I kind of broke away from the church a little, just because I was kind of like angry at God, but I, at the time, just thought I didn't believe anymore. And I had to come back into that and like just find like a new meaning. And it has helped me, especially when I'm having like really tough times or when I'm really struggling, just to kind of just pray about it, and pray for other people too, and just see how that works out. And I think that helps me too, when like, if I'm praying not for something, but for like someone, or for clarity and for guidance versus asking for things, if that makes any sense. Not sure it does, but yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
I've been noticing like a theme, and that a lot of us were like really close with our grandmas, and we, our faith was kind of grew through them because of them. And the same was for me. My grandma was like a saint in my eyes growing up. She was very devout Catholic. She would pray every day, and she would go to church twice a week, and she would always like take me with her. And growing up, I kind of just saw it as like I revered it, but I also kind of found it like a little bit annoying, like, oh, I have to go to church again. Like, but when my grandma got sick and then she fell, I started praying a lot to God, to to help her recover, because I was very close to my grandma. She's practically my best friend. And then when she died, yeah, I got really angry, and I started like questioning a lot of things about my faith, and I started like hating the Bible for some reason. Like I was like, I didn't want to read it, and I didn't like some of the things that it had to say about certain things. And so I did fell off with my religion for a bit, and now I've just kind of, as I've gotten older, I've started to realize that yeah, there's a lot of crappy things that happen in this world, but as sick and twisted as they may be, sometimes there's a reason for them, and I might not understand it, but I just have to just trust God, and and like you said, Sydney, just kind of like surrender. And so
Thanks, Mary, for sharing. Let's see, Fun. Okay, there you go.
Okay, so as some of you know that I grew up and I was born and spent my first 10 years in South Africa under apartheid. And as I may have mentioned before, we lived in separate communities, so according to ethnicity or race. And but ironically, I grew up with churches around me, hearing church bells, as well as the Muslim call to prayer, and as well as seeing people put lamps out for the Hindu festival of Diwali. So even though I went to school with all people mostly of Indian background, after school, each one of us would go to our religious schools, separate ones. And yeah, there it was called a madrasa, and there I learned that our holy books are we have 4. They're like the Old Testament, New Testament, the Psalms, and the Quran being the final revelation is what we believed. But we were taught about all the prophets and messengers and all the stories that you would probably be familiar with from the Bible. So many of you. So yeah, I grew up with in a very cosmopolitan atmosphere, but of course within my community and family, we learned about our values, and just like everyone else, the 10 Commandments, and we woke up early for Ramadan. I remember my grandmother's house, it was when it fell in the winter time, because we follow the lunar calendar, or the Islamic calendar. So when Ramadan fell in the winter time, we'd wake up early in the morning and would sit by the heater because it would be really cold, and and we could hear the rooster crowing and things like that. So I have really beautiful memories. Again, the theme of grandmothers and how they passed down important values to us. So I do remember my grandmother praying and teaching us about religion as well. And when I visited South Africa in 1997, after about 16 years for the first time, I remember having some really soulful conversations with my grandfather. And I don't know, he must have sensed that I kind of lacked confidence at that time, but he told me, like, you know what, you should be more confident, and don't worry what anyone else thinks, as long as you just keep praying, reading the Quran and things like that. So yeah, faith has played a huge role in my family life. And even my father passed away about 5 years ago, and growing up, he was a lawyer, but he was really good at lectures, and he used to always teach us about our religion, and also other religions as well. So we discussed everything at our dinner table, and in a very open-minded way. Yeah, I love it. And in my undergrad, I took Religious Studies 101, because I'm fascinated by all the world's religions, and I respect all, and I think we all have some shared universal principles that we have in common, and so the golden rule, for example. So yeah, I'm all into spirituality in general and faith in general. So.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I think for me, so I am Catholic, grew up in a Catholic family, but I went to Black Catholic churches when I was little. Like coming from New Orleans, like Black Catholicism and Black churches are really predominant. And so it was common, you know, just like going to a church and the pews are just full with Black people who happen to be the same religion as me. And I think one of my fondest memories of like growing up in Black Catholic churches is the music, the gospel music. You know, this would be the same music that you would hear in like Baptist churches. And just like that community was just like, it brings me some of the fondest memories, because like a lot of the songs that I know today are because of the songs that I learned back then when I was a child, and just like singing them over and over again. And so that was something that is one of my fondest memories, is just like going to a Black Catholic church and say like, these are my people and they believe in the same thing I believe, type thing. And then my grandpa on my dad's side of the family, so my dad's dad is actually a Baptist preacher, and he was Catholic at one time and then converted twice. And so now he's a Baptist preacher and he has a little church in the bayou. So I remember just like, you know, for holidays or special events, like his church anniversary, we would go down to the bayou and like, you know, say hi grandpa, and like, you know, attend his church service. And just like when I was little, he would always like tell me like these scriptures that he loved, and a lot of those like stuck in my head. So it was cool, like, you know, saying, oh, my grandpa is like a Baptist preacher, but I also practice, you know, Catholicism. So just having the two intersect, as you can see, like there's a lot of similarities between the two religions. And I think that's what the beauty of religion and spirituality is like you can find a lot of connects versus disconnects. And even the disconnects, you can learn a lot. And so I just think, you know, it's just like great for collaboration, and just like it has to do a lot with culture. And so we actually have a question from one of our viewers, and it's an anonymous question that reads, so in a book that she co-wrote, Religion is Man-Made, but Spirituality is God-Given. Do you agree, and what are your thoughts on religion today? And anyone can go. And I can repeat the question if needed.
Do you mind repeating the question? Sorry.
Sure. So it reads in a book that I co-wrote, Religion is Man-Made, but Spirituality is God-Given. Do you agree on that statement? And what are your thoughts on religion today?
I agree with that like a lot. Because I would say, I mean, I was raised Catholic, but I wouldn't call myself Catholic anymore. Just because, you know, there's just some things I don't agree with that Catholicism teaches. And so I don't think it's right for me to call myself Catholic then, because Catholics are like, you have to, you know, you can't pick and choose what you believe in, but I've been kind of doing that. So so I kind of refer to myself as Christian, but sometimes, but I'm not the type of Christian that like goes to church every Sunday. I'm the type that's just like, you can pray at home. And I like to pray at home in the privacy, you know, sometimes I feel like, and this isn't the case for everyone. Sometimes I feel like people go to church often just to kind of like show other people that they go to church. And so I would call, because you know, it's been hard for me to like find like, or find a religion that believes in everything that I do. I would say then I'm more spiritual, because you know, even though I'm not per se Catholic, or maybe I don't adhere to everything that Christianity believes, I still have a very deep and personal relationship with God, and everything I do with my life. I try to think about like, you know, there's like rules that are just kind of like, I don't know what the word is, but there's rules that, you know, that are instinctual, you know, like, you know, don't commit murder, you know, don't you know, hate someone for something so that's out of their control, like, you know. And so everything I try to do is I just try to think on those you know, rules that are kind of instinctual, and that's kind of how I like to, you know, navigate my life, is be kind and respectful to everyone. You know, don't hurt anyone else. So I'm like kind of like rambling right now, and I don't know if I make.
No, that's okay.
But yeah,
This is what this space is for. So
I'm struggling to find words this morning. So, but yeah, I hope that made sense. And I'm gonna let somebody else speak now.
Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
So I agree with that statement a lot. And I think especially like just after thinking about this year alone, like the church home and the four walls of churches has kind of been, we've had to adapt to something different. And now church is virtual, and we've kind of come up with our own communities. So I feel like religion offers a sense of community and a structure and a framework that is tied to a specific culture in history. And it's more about us coming together to express that. But not that this year has threatened that, but it's changed the framework for how we practice religion. And I like to think of religion the same way I like to think of like political parties, or like just capital, like just different constructs that we've created, because that's another framework for how people see the world and how people engage with each other and tell a message. But when it comes to spirituality, that's a personal relationship, and that's something that you have to define for yourself. And your journey will frame that. So I think, you know, religion it has its place, but I have to find my own sense of spirituality, because that place can fluctuate.
That's awesome. I really loved everything that you said there. I think everyone on this call is, you know, giving kudos to you for your statement. So thank you for sharing, Taylor.
Yeah, I was gonna say just like what you said, Taylor, like you hit it on the head. Like, I don't think that religion and spirituality are mutually exclusive. Like they can go together, but they don't need to necessarily be combined to be effective. Like for me, I think I look at religion, like the books and everything that go along with it, as sort of kind of like guiding principles for your life, just to kind of like help you navigate like how you walk through this life, and like help you along that route. Like these are things that will help you to be pure and to help you to be a better person, but they don't need to necessarily be like followed to the T. And I think that when that happens, when people try to do like a literal interpretation of that book, that's where some kind of harm comes in, because your interpretation may not be the interpretation, you know. And but I think for me, like spirituality is, like you said, it's way more personal. It's my conversation with God, or, you know, our connection that we have with each other, that has nothing to do with the church, has nothing to do with anyone else. It's just how we communicate and how he communicates with me, and how, you know, when I'm having a conversation with him, it's our conversation. And I don't necessarily look at it as, oh, I'm a Christian, so this is what I need to do. That has like nothing to do with it. But I think that they're not necessarily, I mean, they can be linked, but they don't have to be linked to be effective.
You brought up some great points. Thank you for sharing, Sharkisha. And one of my follow-up questions to all of this is, you know, because of COVID-19 has kind of forced us to do things differently. How, in what ways, like, has that impacted what you do spiritually, or just like, you know, your rituals with spirituality, religion, and those type of things?
I can go first. Okay, I haven't, prior to, I want to say like maybe a year ago, I don't think I prayed as much as I do now. And I think the way I like view things is completely shifted. It's like totally tilted on its axis. So I think that like my relationship has been kind of redefined in that way. And it's just a different way that I like view the world, and the way I view people in it, and the way I view my spirituality has completely shifted, where it's deeper, but it's like different. I don't really know how to, I wish I could find a way to like make you understand. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's different. It's like, I don't know. I guess I'm failing at this, but yeah, it's different.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, for me, from my background, that we don't really have to go to any particular place of worship, like a mosque or anything, to practice or pray. So, and we don't have any, like we have, like when you go to a mosque or something, there is an imam, which is, you know, similar to a priest, who is similar to a priest, but we don't believe that there's any intercessor between the individual and God, so we have a direct relationship at all times. And so for me, it hasn't changed really anything, because I can pray anywhere, any time of the day, like planes, trains, or automobiles. But of course we can't do that right now with COVID, but I mean, in your bathroom, your kitchen, or whatever, all the COVID places now that we can go to. But yeah, so it hasn't really changed anything, because I just always have this sense of a direct connection with God. One of the things I kept reading about, you know, just on social media, is someone said, or I read one of those posters that says like, intuition or prayer is you talking to God, and intuition is God communicating with you. So I just like to keep that in mind. And intuition is another big word that's come up for me this year as well. So prayer, intuition, yeah, gratitude is, like, for me, the most important part of any prayer. So I'm just grateful for everything, everywhere, despite everything that we're all facing right now. So.
Asifa, Michelle asked if you can repeat the last phrase that you said about intuition.
Oh, okay. So yes, I just kept reading this year that prayer is you talking to talking to God, and intuition is God communicating with you. So I really like that. I don't know, it speaks to me. Seems true. Because we all have this sense of intuition, and if we tap into it, it can really guide us in the right direction, I think, because it's from our gut, and we all have that, and we all can hone that. We can all sharpen that skill. It's something that can protect us. It can just guide us in the right direction, I think. And also, so prayer then is just you reaching out to your however you conceptualize God, or whether you refer to a higher power as the universe or the source, whatever you conceive that to be. Or some people don't actually believe in any kind of deity, but yeah, for me, I'm always conscious of a higher power in absolutely every aspect of my life, every thought, most just throughout the whole day. That's what guides me in terms of what I say, what I think, what I do. It's like not just my moral compass, but it's this consciousness that there's something much bigger than us out there, and we have a purpose that was, each one of us has been given some kind of purpose that we have to fulfill. That's my belief. So yeah, just to be conscious, because that's what binds us together as humanity, is like we have our different, those religious frameworks or just a belief systems, but at the same time, at the end of the day, as I say this through most of our sessions, is that there is this universal, the universal ties that bind us all. We're just basically human beings. We are all going in the same direction. We're all going to end up, you know, in the same boat at the end of our lives. So yeah, I'm just always conscious. I like to look at pictures of space and the planets and stars and things like that, because whenever there's a full moon or, you know, an eclipse or something, I'm always like really excited, because that just reminds me that there's something so much bigger than all of us here, and then it just kind of diminishes all our earthly little problems that we think are so huge, you know. But yeah,
I love that, Asifa. And if anyone wants to answer the current question before we move on to one of our questions from the viewers, the question is just, you know, because of COVID has kind of forced us to do things differently, in what ways did that change or alter your spiritual life? And if anyone wants to answer before we move on, please do so.
I'll go, because this is kind of funny. I was already like going to church less, and so I started watching this guy on YouTube like before COVID even started. So I feel like, you know, my connection to my spiritual practice was already kind of changing. But one thing that someone told me that was really interesting is like, you know, when you hear people like shouting and yelling and like doing these 30-minute prayers or whatever it is, like that is for them, you know, like, and you don't have to do that. But because I grew up around a lot of very like charismatic people in my church. And so really like, figuring out like, what is my process for understanding like how I want to pray, like my process for prayer, but my process to understand like what I'm feeling intuitively. And so journaling has really helped, but also like I'm an artist, and my art practice has become like this whole spiritual experience, because I'm trying to visualize what it is that I feel and what I feel like God is telling me. And so that's been a whole like journey of just me understanding like, oh, this thing that I want to do, like as a visual person, this is helping me spiritually, but also like I'm making cool art. So I think that's something that has shifted this year.
It's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else want to go before we move on to the question from our viewer? Alrighty, so the question is simply, is God a man?
Can I go?
Yep.
I actually don't think of God as a gender. I just don't think that you can confine him to being, or her to being a male or being a female or being, I think God is an entity. I think God is like everything. It's a man, but it's also a woman, but it's also everything encompassed. So I think that to say God is a man and put it like, or even God is just a woman, it's just to be, it's like, it's underwhelming. It's just, it doesn't do justice. And it's just kind of like too small to think of in terms of genders. I think that's more for us. Yeah.
Interesting point, Sharkisha. Thank you.
So Sharkisha, my belief system, you know, happens to align with that kind of thinking as well. Like, don't believe in a higher power that has any kind of gender or, you know, any. I mean, and that's just my own belief system. I mean, everyone is entitled to their own. Yeah, it seems too small, you know, for the all-powerful almighty force in the universe that I believe, you know, which is where we all originated from. We're all created, if you will, by. So I think those kind of categories are all, yeah, a lot of those things are created by humankind. I was going to say mankind, but no, it's humankind. But so, I mean, we all, as human beings, we embody all different kinds of, you know, we have like the yin and the yang, the feminine and masculine qualities in ourselves. So, and so I think that we see that in nature as well, in the universe. So I don't even know how you can define any of those things, but what I believe is, yeah, I don't believe any kind of a humanized kind of a God, like with even facial features or any kind of thing like that. And so, and in my religion specifically, like we don't have any kind of representation or any like icon or statue or any visual representation of the divine. So we just know well, it's referred often as him, but that's understood to not really mean like the him of masculine, because you could say her as well, right? And then in my tradition, like we do have a 99 different names that we can refer to the one God as. If you Google it, I mean, you'll be able to see like the 99 names of Allah. And it's one of them is, for example, love, or, you know, the merciful, or the forgiving, or other names. So those are all just attributes, but there's no other physical kind of attribute.
You learn something new every day. That's awesome. Thank you. Anyone else would like to go? Is God a man?
Yeah, I will admit, like, for the longest time, you know, I didn't even question everybody saying God was a man. And then like I was like on Twitter one day, and then just somebody like was talking about that, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, like you have a point, you know? I I would like to think God is a woman, but no, I truly do think that God has no gender. I keep saying he because that's just what I grew up saying all the time. But yeah, I think God is just is unisex.
I also think, like, you know, coming from the Catholic Church, like, they love the use of pronouns, like he referring to God, the church as she. And so I just like, part of me is like, you know, what if we made God like, or put God in like sense of a gender in order to like make it more personal to us, because, you know, we're people and he created us. So what if it's a way of just making us relate more to him in like a more personal way? But I mean, I think I agree with all of you, like saying like, I don't think God has a gender. I mean, he specifically created mankind for a purpose. So I don't think that he is a person himself. Like, you know, if it's a spirit, if it's like some kind of entity or being, like, I just think that, you know, he's omnipotent, he's all knowing, he's all powerful. So I just think you can't like just box him into, you know, like just one thing. He's, like Sharkisha said, he's everything. So it's just a habit of saying he's, like, it's like, no. But thank you guys for sharing. So another question that I wanted to bring up earlier was, have you guys ever thought about converting to a different religion or just shifting, you know, your belief system? And if you could talk about that, please do.
I've thought about this a lot. Like I said, I grew up Baptist and went to Catholic school. So for a long time, like all my friends were Catholic. And it was kind of like a culture shock to start going to Catholic school after not going, because there were so many different like prayers that I didn't know that I was being tested on, and like hand movements and just motions. And so I kind of felt a little out of place. And so I, as a kid, wanted to convert to Catholicism. And then when I got to college, I was just very curious, and I was exploring Buddhism. I took a world religions class in high school as well. But I was just kind of exploring a bunch of different things and figured I'd just kind of pave my own way. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
I don't know if it would be like switching, but I have kind of, I grew up Christian, St. John Pentecostal, and I kind of moved away from just like defining myself as Christian and just having a belief system. What I am doing a little bit differently is like with my kids, I have decided, my husband and I have both decided that we aren't going to really introduce religion to them. We just kind of want to let them explore and navigate and find their own way and find their own belief and support system. I just want it to be their choice because my choice was kind of made for me. And even as I'm older and I'm learning a little bit more about different religions, and they're all kind of basically the same guiding principles, but you know, just different ways of like celebrating or believing in that. I'm just like, my belief is I do believe there's a God, there's a higher power, you know, and that's guiding us, that's like put us all here, and we all have this purpose, and we all should live by these guiding principles. But for my kids, I just want to let it be their choice. So whatever religion they decide to follow, or if they don't at all, I just wanted to kind of like let it be there, which is probably a little controversial, and I'm okay with that. Just kind of, I think for me, when I was younger, I didn't really understand. I just kind of was doing what my grandmother wanted us to do. So it's kind of like you go here, and I didn't really understand it, and it wasn't until I became older and became like late teens into adult that I kind of like took it a little bit more seriously and kind of had to learn it on my own and understand it. And I had to actually break away from it to come back to it. So I kind of want to just let them do their own thing and find their own way and support that. And I think it'll be kind of cool because as they get older, they're too young. My son's only 2. My daughter's 5 months. Just kind of like together with them, like exploring all the different religions and like learning about it together. And I think it'll be good for me because I'll learn a little bit more about all these different religions and like the foundation of what they believe. And I'll be learning it with them, and they can choose or not choose what they want to believe in. So that's like the change that I'm making. Instead of
Thank you, Sharkisha.
Mm-hmm.
I actually love this question a lot because I've considered changing many times, and 2 specifically, Taoism and the Episcopal Church. Taoism specifically because I was watching this show that introduced me to it, and then I was just really interested to learn more about it. And so I got this book and I started reading it. And I just loved everything it was saying about it. Basically, Taoism or Taoism basically like refers to like God as the way, and that the way is in everything and everywhere, and you're like surrounded by it, and it's very individualistic, not institutionalized sort of religion. And it's kind of like they kind of the core belief in, please correct me, I mean I only read a book about it, so I haven't done extensive research, but basically it was saying, kind of the way I interpret it is, you know how most Christians believe that you know you can find God in nature. That's kind of how I was interpreting when I was reading this book, and I absolutely love that. And so I just read the book and I was like, I really want to convert, but I haven't done it yet, but maybe I will one day. And then I was also thinking about I wanted to be Episcopalian, because I just think they're they're very progressive, and I really like how they're accepting of the LGBTQ community, and like they can have like female priests, and I was like, I love this. So those are the two that came to mind. But yeah.
For me, I don't think I necessarily didn't think of converting, but once I went to undergrad, like me and Marian went to a Jesuit institution, and like the Jesuits themselves, like within the Catholic Church, a lot of them see them as more progressive and kind of like, the other side of Catholicism, like, you don't want to go near that side because they say radical things. But I think that's essentially what drew me to like learning more about the Jesuits and Ignatian spirituality. So St. Ignatius is like the founder of the Jesuits, and like he was just different, like he didn't go along the path that everyone else did. Like he went his own path and like found his own like way of spirituality. And like something about the Jesuits that really sticks out to me is like their commitment to social justice and like their, being in solidarity with everyone. And I feel like the Catholic Church sometimes doesn't always do that, especially when they marginalize like LGBTQ community and just like certain communities. But I think Ignatian spirituality is the biggest teaching from that is like finding God in all things. So whether that's in people or in nature, like that's something that's always stuck with me since going to undergrad, is trying to find God in all things. And I just think that just creates like a sense of open-mindedness that we all should have, because that affects how we treat people and how we react to certain situations. So that's something that I've been tapping more into, is like just learning about Ignatian spirituality. And it's still Catholicism, it's just a little differently and more expansive. So yeah. And so one other question that I have is, who has impacted your spirituality the most? I know Marian mentioned her grandmother, but does anyone else want to mention like who has impacted their life spiritually?
I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but Medea, Tyler Perry.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I watched a lot of the movies, and a lot of them are religious based, obviously, and they have really good messages. Like I always find, like even just watching one, I'm like, okay, I need to go to church now, because I'm like, I need to hear more of this. I need more of the word. Like, so as embarrassing as that is to admit, they have really like had a big impact on my spiritual journey. So yeah, I'm a religion. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that answer.
I feel like this is a really big question, because at different points of my life, different people have impacted my sense of spirituality. But definitely like my mom, just like as a kid growing up, listening to her music, like you said, Sydney, like gospel music for me now has a sense of nostalgia. And even when I'm not like super into, my spiritual practice, or I feel like I'm kind of walking away, like if I'm having a bad day, I'm gonna put on a gospel song and like instantly feel uplifted. So I think just her sharing, that part of her, and like her getting that from her mom, and like it being passed down, has given me that frame, that, I don't know, the building block, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But then like Beyonce is somebody, like after I watched Black is King, I was like, oh, I see like the story of Moses and the children of Israelites. And I really connected to that on a spiritual level. So lately it's been her artistry
Ooh,
that has been speaking to me.
nice. I love that. Anyone else want to go before I move on to a great follow-up question?
Can I just add one more thing too?
Go for it.
Aside from Tyler Perry, but I have had instances in my life where I will be in a situation, and say, for example, I am at like a McDonald's and I'm just feeling like all the weight of the world on me, and I'm just sitting there drinking my coffee. I've had instances where people will come up to me and they'll be like, I don't know why, but I just feel something is telling me to just tell you that, whatever you're going through is going to pass. And like, I've had like a few instances like that. And I always feel like God has sent them to me just to kind of like remind me like, hey, things are not looking, probably you feel like, you know, down, but it's getting better. So, and it's like complete strangers. And that's happened to me a few times in my life. So it's just like the angels walking among us who just kind of look out for us and just let us know. So that's always been part of it too.
That's great. And I want to go back to something that Tayler said, like, you know, there are different points in your life where different people impacted you spiritually. So I feel like the first, like, maybe 10 to 12 years, my grandma, as Tayler knows, I call Nana. And so she lived in California because she had been living out there. She lived out there for like 20 years in like the Oakland, but she lived in Berkeley area. And so the only times I would be able to go to visit her was like during the summer months when I was off for school. And so I would spend like 2 weeks from her. And so like I was kind of close to her, but because, you know, we were separated like distance wise, I wasn't able to like get as close to her when I was younger as we are now. So she's moved back to New Orleans since then, a couple years after Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And so just like spending more one-on-one time with her, I got to know her more and just like really studied her habits with like, you know, religion and spirituality. And, you know, she's just really big on like going to daily mass and stuff, but like really just like she's such a prayerful woman. And then my mom, on the other hand, like as I started getting older and just watching her and her movements, like she has a strong bond with the Holy Spirit. And she has introduced me to like a whole world of just developing that relationship with the Holy Spirit. And something that she always tells me is just like, no matter what you're going through, like you could be in a good mood, you could be in a bad mood, call on the Holy Spirit, like he's always there, it's always there. And you know, just focus on, you know, developing that relationship with the Holy Spirit, because that's always something that's going to be around you, covering you no matter what. And so my follow-up question is, what are your favorite like scriptures, prayers, songs, movies, like anything spiritually related? I know I saw Sharkisha said, I love Fred Hammond. Yes. Like coming from a gospel music lover, like Fred Hammond is someone who I grew up on, Donnie McClurkin, Marvin Sapp. So I would love to hear you share some of your favorites as well.
I have I did right. I have Fred Hammond. He had the song, and I can't even still to this day hear without like feeling emotional. It's called "Don't Pass Me By," and it's about like a blind man who's like on the road, and like Jesus is walking, and people are like, "Don't bother him. You're not worthy enough." Essentially, like, and Jesus is like, he's like, "I'm not worthy, but I want to be. You know, I want to walk with you." And it's like, it's a really beautiful song, and it's just like powerful. So just basically saying like we're all worthy, even if you don't feel like you have anything to offer, like you are enough, kind of. And then there's the no weapons. It's basically like no weapon formed against me. Like if you are walking with God, then there's nothing anyone that can do that can, you know, he's got you covered. Basically, like no weapon formed against you shall prosper. So like anyone wishing you harm or anything like that, it will not come to pass. So those are two of my favorite songs, and they're both by Fred Hammond. Yeah.
Awesome, I love that.
Something I always just hear in my head and repeat in my head, and there's a song by William Murphy called "It's Working," but just believing that like it's working for my good. Like that is something like when I'm walking down the street, I'm like, everything is working out for my good. It's already handled. Even if it looks bad, like it's working towards a greater purpose that I can't see right now. I probably don't understand, but I just have to believe that. And I've also been liking this podcast called Black Girl in Om, but it's basically a spiritual development podcast, but they interview a bunch of different women from different walks of life and different beliefs and different professions. And I really like their perspectives and how they frame the podcast.
That's awesome. And if you like read any devotions and have any recommendations, like share them with us too. Anyone else want to go?
So for as far as like I don't know what each person is familiar with, but just from my tradition, like from one of the there's just so many verses from the Quran that I can think of, but one that stands out is like it's more like there is no compulsion in religion, so you can't really force anyone else to believe what you believe, and God guides who he wills. So as far as music, like I don't know, I listen to music from all different cultures, backgrounds, religions. I mean, everything from sometimes some gospel music to Sufi music, which is kind of the maybe some of you have heard of Sufism, which is kind of more of the spiritual aspect of Islam that doesn't really focus so much on all the rules and things like that, but it's the same idea of just love, and that most religions are geared towards. Well, just, one of the songs that just came to my mind, it was from Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror. I mean, that's something that just came up in my mind a couple seconds ago. Amazing Grace. Let's see. I don't know. Ain't No Mountain High Enough or something like that.
A classic.
Yeah. So anything uplifting. I mean, I love to like sometimes listen to Aretha Franklin, like that. There's all the traditions, all the music, anything that praises the God. Yeah. I mean, we don't have specific types of hymns per se or anything like that. Like that's not part of our rituals of worship, but just a lot of people, if you Google, I mean, if you want, like YouTube, or you'll find a lot of Quranic recitations. They're in Arabic, but of course you can also find translations to the different verses as well online. But the whole, it's very poetic, and there's a lot of very mystical meanings in there as well, and a lot of practical ones as well. So just yesterday I was reading the Quran, and I happened to, because I was dealing with something on a personal front, and then I thought, okay, well, I want to read that chapter because it's about it's the story of Joseph, the same biblical Joseph, who was ostracized and turned away by his own siblings and things like that. So family members. And so and sometimes, or another one, it would be like the story of, probably many of you know as Jonah, just something different in Arabic, but it's the same, when you want to be delivered out of that proverbial whale of a situation, so yeah, so we have so many similarities. I wish people would just do a lot more reading and research and realize, we're all coming, very much, a lot of us are coming from the same roots. On the other hand, like, okay, so also I've spent a couple of years in Japan, and there I got to learn about the Zen Buddhism, and I was invited to a ceremony where one of the old priests was handing over his priesthood to his son, and they invited me as like a special guest, and so that was very enlightening. I learned a lot from being in Japan about Buddhism, and I see a lot. When I learned about it, I thought, okay, yeah, those are exactly what I believe as well. So those principles and values. So there's just a lot of commonalities. I don't know if I've gone off topic, but but anyway, that's yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think one of my favorite prayers is actually, so for me and Taylor, we went to the same high school, and one of our math teachers, Ms. Gerwitz, would always begin class with the Serenity Prayer. And so ever since then, you know, it goes like, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And that's always been one of my favorite prayers. So especially when I'm feeling like really sad, like that's something that I always like can come up with. And then another one is, it's actually a devotion that I read. It's a small book. I don't want to grab it right now because I have to get up, but it's called Jesus Calling. And another one of our teachers from high school would always begin class with the Jesus Calling prayer. Like, you know, whatever day it was, she would flip to the page and just read us a little blurb. And so like, for me, that's something that I feel like I can maintain and be consistent with, because I'm always on the go. And like, and it's like, if I can grant God like this little time of just like prayer and like devotion to him, then that puts me in the right mindset that I need to continue on with my day. And so that's something that I've been trying to build more of, especially like because of COVID, and just like really being more intentional with like how much time I'm spending in prayer, and just like finding little ways that I can include more prayer throughout the day. So that's a really helpful book, and I'll drop the link to Jesus Calling. But so we also have another question from one of our viewers, and this happens to be from Michelle. And she says, a lot of people turn to nature as their religion. And she's curious to know if you have a strong connection to the great outdoors like she does.
I know I do. Yeah, like I said earlier, when I believe that, you know, God is everywhere, and you can sometimes I see most of God in nature. And I don't know, like sometimes I'm my happiest when I'm going on a bike ride, just like around my neighborhood and to the park. And I'm just like experiencing like the breeze. I'm seeing the beautiful greenery, and I don't know, it just brings me so much peace. And I like to go on hikes too, and like always when I'm doing something outdoors, I just feel just so at peace. I can't describe. I don't have many words to describe it, but just peace and bliss. And there's so many beautiful things in this world that you can't help just think that they're not just there randomly. Like, you know, somebody put a lot of attention and time and detail into making all of this. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Would anyone else like to go?
I like this question a lot because I always feel kind of like hippy dippy when I think about it. But I really, like Marian said, I feel a lot of peace when I'm in nature, especially when I'm next to like oak trees. I really like massive trees. And when I'm next to water, it just brings me so much peace. And I studied architecture in college, and I think about like humans building things, you know, as architects, but God being like the architect of the natural environment, and we have no control over it. And just kind of studying like how people have desire and crave like a sense of control and to be able to manipulate things, but nature just like coming through and reminding us that like there's something so much greater that we can't like build a levee to contain. And I could like rant on and on about the natural and the built environment, but yeah, I do feel a lot of peace in nature.
That's awesome. Anyone else?
So I just shared a little link because I was trying to look online for this one. There's more than one verse that talks about this, I think, in the Quran, but it's the fact that like in everything in nature, the birds, the mountains, the trees, everything, we're told also sing the praises of God, like sing his praises, his exalts God. So yeah, and then we're also have this view that everything in nature is also a sign. It's like proof of God's presence or existence, if you will. So yeah, nature is very, very, very powerful. And that's how I feel as well, Marian. Like when I even see birds, I'm looking out the window, eating my breakfast, and you know, the trees, everything, like it just brings me such a great deal of peace. And just recently I started, and I think about that those verses as well. You know, everything is glorifying our Creator, is what I believe. And I just started leaving like some food out for the magpies nearby here, that they're always looking for food and trying to come into our house as well, you know, just. But I remember this one kind of interesting thing that my grandmother said to me when I was about, maybe 8, 6, 7, 8 years old. And she said, and it's not really part of our beliefs, but we don't really believe in reincarnation, but she just said, don't tell anybody, but when I die, I want to come back as a bird. So, you know, and I often think about that, and I don't know, it's not really part of any belief system per se of mine, but I do feel like there's you know, animals, and we get signs. There could be angels or guides, and I do definitely in my tradition we believe in angels, and we believe that God sends guides and agents to help us on our way, or to bring a blessing to us or something like that. So yeah, definitely everywhere around me is the presence of my Creator. So
so during undergrad, I did a lot of retreats, as some of y'all know. And a lot of them were at the beach, because where my school was, it was only an hour away from like Orange Beach and Gulf Shores and Pensacola Beach. So I was always at the beach, and I just love the beach because it just has like a certain stillness to it, especially like when you go out there at night. And I'm a person that easily falls asleep, but like I'm just like so at peace at the beach. Like I just drift off to sleep, and like I know that, you know, I'm being taken care of, and just me being still is very hard. And at the beach, like I know I can do that. You know, I can be still, and just like I just love how you can just like look out on the horizon and just like not see an end. And, you know, to me, that's just like God, like he has no end. And, you know, we have an end here on earth, but like when we go up, you know, when we die and like go to the next step, like be reunited with him, like there, you know, we don't end as well. Like our spirit rises with him. So that's something that I really miss, is going to the beach and like just having that access, that close access. So hopefully when I do go home to New Orleans, I'll be able to make that drive to the beach again. And so we have our next question is talking about religion and culture, and how those two are often seen as coexisting and intertwined. What ways do you notice the overlap between religion and culture, and how does religion impact culture? And let me know if I can repeat the question. I'll also drop it in the chat.
I can go first, I guess. I think that definitely they do coexist, at least like for me, like in the Black community, or even in the Afro-Latin community. It informs like traditions, I think, that we do. It informs like some of the belief patterns that we have. I think, let me think of an example of like when we move into a new house, what my grandmother used to always do is she used to always stage the house to make sure that like there's no like bad spirits or bad energy still remaining there. And she also did it at New Year's, just to make sure like at New Year's, like you're getting rid of all that like negative energy or anything like that. So I don't know if that's like kind of similar, but that's probably one of the things. And I think that's a big part of that. Trying to think of another example. I don't know if other people do this, like with the broom. Like if you move out of your house, you leave the broom behind, because you don't want to sweep anything new into like what you're doing. So that's another thing. I don't know if that like factors in. It's just like two examples that I'm thinking of right now.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else?
I think a lot about New Orleans culture and like Black New Orleans culture. 'Cause even just like our Mardi Gras, like that's tied to the Catholic Church, and it's, you know, it's a very, it has religious roots that a lot of people kind of forget about. And like going to Catholic school, we were off the whole week because Mardi Gras is tied to Lent, and Sydney can speak more about like the Catholic Church and Mardi Gras. But also like the jazz funeral that has like historic roots to Africa and Haiti, like that's something that we still do today in New Orleans. And it's called the Second Line. And I don't know how familiar you all are with that, but I feel like there are very deep spiritual roots in this cultural event. And it's so sad because we can't do those things because of COVID. But I think just the gathering, the practices of gathering and singing and dancing and the call and response is something that you see a lot in Black religious practices in the South, at least.
And Michelle asked if you can explain Second Line a little bit more.
Yeah, so the Second Line is rooted to the jazz funeral. So when somebody would die, somebody who was more influential would pass away, they would go from the church to the burial site, but it was like a parade. So there was a first line and the second line. The first line, those are all of the musicians playing the drums and the horns. And in New Orleans, actually, Black people who were enslaved were allowed to have instruments. And that's kind of how they, you know, created jazz. But the first line would lead the second line, which are all the followers, and they would carry the casket down the street, but it was a celebration. And they would play, you know, slower songs, and that would kind of depict, that would pave the way for reverence and more of a, I guess, a reverent period in the second line. And then they would do fast-paced songs, and people would dance and just celebrate the life of the person that has passed away. Now, on Sundays, we still do the second lines for a funeral, but now it's just more of like a big party, and people walk throughout the city, and you kind of have to find it. Sometimes the Mardi Gras Indians, who are tied to, you know, Native American culture, they lead the second lines closer to Mardi Gras. But yeah, this is rooted back to Haiti, and I'm not sure exactly where in Africa this would be. I'm sure like Western African culture it would be rooted back to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I hope that helps explain it.
I mean, I didn't realize, I didn't know that either, Taylor. So you you educated me today on that.
Thank you. I did this research project on it, and it was hard. I wanted to map out like the locations of the Mardi Gras Indians without even realizing that their whole process is kind of like this secretive game, and you have to find them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, those details are not always publicized. Like it really depends on who you know and like who that person knows type thing. So yeah, it's really cool. Anyone else would like to go?
So yeah, what I noticed from a young age that like American Catholics and like Central American Catholics have like different traditions. Specifically, what comes to mind are Purisimas and Novenas. And if you don't know what like Purisimas and Novenas are, Purisimas are it's just they're like little celebrations that that revere the Virgin Mary, but we like to call her La Virgen de Guadalupe. And novenas are something you do like around Christmas, and like everyone gathers and like sing songs for baby Jesus. And there's one song specifically that comes to mind because we always sing it at the novena. It says, pero mira cómo beben los peces en el río, pero mira cómo beben a ver a Dios nacido. So basically, it's just, let me translate. It's like, so look at how the fish are swimming, and look at how the fish are drinking as Jesus Christ is being born. And so anyway, and so when I moved to the United States, I thought my Catholic friends would be having these celebrations like Purísimas and Novenas. And they were like, what the hell are you talking about? We don't know anything about this. And so I started inviting them to these things, and they thought it was a little bit weird. And then I started getting embarrassed by it. And I was like, and then as I got older, I'm like, wait, why am I embarrassed about this? Like, this is like part of my Latinx Catholic culture. And so it's just, there's just slight little differences, and yeah, and I've grown to appreciate those differences.
And I think for me, one thing that I've seen a really big overlap with religion and culture is through music. I think this transcends no matter what genre, pop, R&B, obviously gospel. I took a religion and culture class in undergrad, and with this amazing teacher. So I thought he was Catholic for the longest time, but he was Episcopalian. And but he's kind of torn between one or the other, because he works at a Catholic school, but he's a Episcopalian priest, which I thought was really cool. And I remember the first day of class, I think I took it my junior year of high school, of undergrad, and he showed us this Madonna music video. I can't tell you what the name of the song was, but it was basically a video of all religious symbols, and just her just singing the song and bringing this up. And then the other video that he showed us was from Elton John, and I forgot the name of the song that he did too, but it was just a lot of overlap with religion, spirituality, but also culture. And so I feel it's really hard to separate those two things, because one influences the other. It's again, they're coexisting. You just can't have one without the other, I feel so. Was it just a prayer? I think that was the name of the song. Again, if I find the music video, I will send it to y'all at a later time. But it was just really that class is really interesting, because I really saw the overlap. And people say, our culture is dying, but then again, it's well, look at the presence or look at the influence that religion has had in our culture. Even you get into the whole argument, the state versus what am I trying to say? The whole argument, government shouldn't be involved in certain things, and just the overlap. And I don't know, I'm getting off track, but yeah, so that was just something that I would just wanted. Yeah, separation of church and state. Thank you. And just that whole argument. I mean, we see it in our federal government, going to the Capitol building. I was able to go last summer because I had an internship here, and there's a bunch of religious symbols in the Capitol, and I'm not sure people realize that. So that was just something that I noted. I was wow, it's everywhere, and people try to separate it, but I just think it's hard to separate it, because of the overlap. But yeah. Sharkisha said on our money. Yes, it's on our money too. It's everywhere. So it's just, ever since that class, I'm being more conscious of it and just seeing how predominant it is. So one of my other questions that I would like to ask you guys is, how do you think religion and spirituality will evolve in the future? In the next few years, where do you see it going? How do you see it evolving?
I'm hoping, and I'm seeing a little bit of this too, of it becoming more progressive. Pope Francis recently announced that he believes that gay couples should be allowed to marry, and I thought that was wonderful. Still more can be done. And I'd like some Catholic female priests for one thing. So still hoping for that. But I've been seeing a lot of church. In the past, I saw a lot of churches try not to get into politics, but like politics, you know, a lot of politics is also human rights, and I feel like it's like irresponsible and like sinful to not get involved when we, you know, we're over here like debating people's like rights to like safety, like food, water, home. And so I just, what I'm hoping is that you know, that religious institutions like start to become more like practice what you preach, you know, sort of thing, and become more involved and advocate for these groups that have always just been mistreated and underrepresented. And you know, I feel like churches could do more to support the LGBTQ community and the Black Lives Matter movement as well. So, and I've been saying some churches do that, but I'd like, you know, for it to be vamped up a bit.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Marian, and like that kind of makes me think of just the whole pro-life movement. And, you know, in other ways, like it just makes me sick sometimes because the same people are saying pro-life, 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 you know, but they're only regarding or talking about, you know, abortion and like the unborn babies. But where is your voice when, you know, Black people are killed, you know, just by police and all of these injustices? Where are you when, you know, a person who's a part of the LGBT community is turned away by their family because of how they identify? And so I feel like, you know, if you're pro-life, you should be it from the womb to the tomb. So that's just my point of view.
And you know, if everyone's familiar, you know, Brandon was recently executed. And so, you know, I'm sorry, but I don't think you get to call yourself pro-life if you're not over here doing everything in your that you can to stop these executions, and that we know. And a lot of these executions are Black men, and that's not just random, you know. So,
Amen, sister. Amen. Is anyone else like to go? Yes, Sharkisha, go ahead.
Sorry, it took me a second to unmute that. I was just going to say that I think going forward, we're going to see like this divergence of either extreme, like people who are like extremely conservative or extremely progressive. And I think that there's going to be more religions. Sorry, I'll come back when I calm her down. Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Asifa, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so I'll just address the current question first. I think especially now because of the pandemic and we're all kind of more confined socially and we can't really go out freely, but it's been a time, there's been lots of big blessings in this whole time, and from my perspective, I think, because I think when it first started, people were starting to talk about religion and spirituality all of a sudden, and I'm thinking like, oh, okay, so now people are starting to wake up and to start to think about those things, like that there are things beyond our control. And it's this quiet time is allowing people to become more introspective. And I mean, we live in a digital era as well, so people can easily find information online. So I think it's a great opportunity for people to do their research, read about different cultures and religions and about spirituality, and then decide for themselves what works for them, right? I mean, nobody has to subscribe to any particular point of view or anything, but at least now people are going more inward, I hope. And I think generally people are just realizing, or maybe it's my hope, it's like about being less materialistic, and all the things that we placed value in before, we're starting to realize that we don't really need those things to survive and to thrive. And yeah, I just getting back to the previous question then as well, when you were talking about, you mentioned overlap. I mean, it could go both ways. Culture can influence religion or the other way around. Like I'm just thinking of when I was in grade grade 1 elementary school in South Africa, and the name of the school was Islamia State Aided Primary School, and it was all Indian. And then in the morning assembly, school assembly, we all had to recite the Lord's Prayer, the Christian prayer. So, you know, it was very, and that's an influence from the European cultures that came to South Africa through colonialism and imperialism and apartheid. So in that sense, either their religion or their culture, you know, was imposed on other people who may not have believed exactly the same things as they did. So there's a lot of that, and that's another point. And I wanted to bring this up because I read the other day, I just was scrolling through Facebook and I saw someone posted a Christmas tree, and some other reposted another post about I wonder if I wish everyone, if I wish someone say Merry Christmas, how many people would say Merry Christmas back? And I mean, that I found that like a bit troublesome, problematic, because I personally, whenever it's one of my friends' holidays, whether it's Hanukkah which is on still now, I think, but I have Jewish friends, I have Christian friends, whenever it's anyone's holidays, I take the time to wish them, because it just brings me joy to wish people, you know, to be blessed during their holidays, respective holidays and things like that. But not many people know when my important holidays are, or even what they are. So I mean, I wish someone Merry Christmas, but if you come up to me, or you go, like, it would be if I go up to somebody else and just on my holiday and say Eid Mubarak or something, and they may not even know what it is, but if they do, I think that's, I would rather just, you know, like, there's so many holidays during this season. For me, the most respectful thing is to just say, you know, if it's their holiday, wish them theirs, but otherwise, I don't know. I don't want to get into that kind of, it's a controversial debate, and maybe it will, well, I think it boils down to respect. Like, you can't presume you have to ask somebody first, do you celebrate this or that? And then if they don't, why do you have the right to wish them otherwise, like, other than what they believe in?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, definitely. I think inclusivity and just respect is very important around this time, especially because, like, I mean, we live in a world where people are celebrating all types of things and that they cherish and, you know, they look forward to. So definitely, I think happy holidays is something that I just say to be inclusive and respectful. So I saw your comment there, Marian, too. And Tayler, did you want to answer the question that we were talking about? Like, where do you see religion and spirituality shaping in the next few years or so?
Yeah, oh, I really didn't have an answer for this, but I was curious, Sharkisha, to know, as someone like with young kids, and if you're starting to think about the world that they're going to grow up in, like, how does that influence your answer to this question as well?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that, I think it's mostly positive. I think that with the younger generation that's up and coming, they're a little bit more researched, they're a little bit more open-minded. So I think there will be a lot more progressive, a lot more acceptance. I actually even think there may even be some new religions that spring up out of this, that kind of encompasses other religions and just kind of blends them in together. I also do think there will be, like, some radical extremists that come out of it as well, conservative-wise, that maybe cherry pick what they want, like pro-life and anti-LGBTQ, and run with that. But I think it's going to be mostly progressive and positive.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And so we are nearing the end of our webinar. This has been such a great discussion and conversation with you all. And so I have two final questions for you. So my first one is, why is faith, religion, spirituality important to you? What purpose or purposes do those things fulfill in your life? I know that's a tough question. It's going to require some thought. I'm thinking myself too.
You know, like I mentioned before, when I was growing up, I started questioning a lot of things about my religion, but I never had this urge to like become an atheist or something and not believe in anything at all. And that's not to criticize atheists, but I, you know, I feel like just personally that there is someone and something greater than me, and believing in this God kind of gives me a direction in life, and makes my purpose and existence less scary and less confusing. So that's why, even though I may disagree with certain aspects of religion, I always maintain my spirituality. And I like my spirituality because it helps guide me in life. And sometimes I feel like if you don't believe in anything at all, like you're like prone to not really think about all of the possible results of your actions. But I don't know, it just, to me, it just helps me like make better decisions, and treat people more fairly and just, and radiate more love. That's just ultimately the type of person like I want to be. It's just someone who radiates love and respects and cares for everyone. And you know um if a lot of the philosophies of most religion are based on that, just kind of like loving everyone and respecting everyone. And so yeah, that's why spirituality is so important for me. Is just because it helps me navigate life, and helps me be the best version of myself.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Would anyone else like to go?
For me, it's important because it does, like, it makes me feel not alone. It makes me feel like there's a higher purpose, and like things that are happening, maybe if I don't understand it like right now, there's like a bigger picture that I'm not aware of, that maybe I'm being protected from something bigger. So and it grounds me, and it just gives me a sense of like peace, and it's a connectedness with other people who share the same belief and core, and it just makes me realize that I'm like a small part of a really bigger, a more beautiful, powerful thing.
Beautiful. Very well said. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I feel like there's just something so great that we can be a part of, and something that is a lot bigger, like what you said, like Beyonce said, like, I don't just feel insignificant, like I feel like I'm contributing to something that is so much greater and has a much greater purpose. And I'm an agent for that. Like I, am a vessel, and I choose to follow God and to be a part of that. And I feel like this world is so chaotic, and there's so many things telling you that like we're insignificant. I read a whole book called Homo Deus, and it was this guy's estimation, like for how he thinks that humans will evolve in the future. And it was basically just saying that we're insignificant, and I just don't believe that. And I went through such a hard time just reading this book, because I was seeping in like this messaging. And I think I respect what you believe, but I think that we all have a gift and a purpose to bring to the world. And my spirituality is important because it helps me to tap into that and to tap into how I can help achieve a much greater purpose and stay on track.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor. Asifa, would you like to add anything?
Sorry. Okay. Yes, I agree totally with everything that everyone said, especially what you said just now, Taylor, because I just was thinking deeply about this week, because when we you know, we get into little arguments maybe with people, or we have little problems that we focus on in our daily lives, and then we have to reflect, like, where is that coming from? And most of the times it comes from our ego. And I think that when we remove ourselves from that, we realize that, you know, this is how I see things anyways, that we each have our own individual, we are each here to serve some kind of purpose through our gifts, our talents, our skills, and that's actually serving the higher purpose. So we're just kind of vessels or conduits. That's how I see myself right now. And then that allows me to do away with all kinds of, you know, like insecurities or anything like that. I say, okay, why am I doing this? Why is it important for me to like participate in this forum right now or post something on Instagram? It's not because of me. I don't really care to have any, you know, praise or attention or anything. It's just, like, I'd rather just go quietly and sit somewhere and like read a book or something. And well, actually I don't really read books that much right now, but except for studying. But yeah, you know, that's what I've been questioning a lot more as I get older, is like, why is it important to do this? Time is very limited for each of us on this planet, and so it's about our purpose. Otherwise, what is the point of life? Like, I don't want to waste my life sitting somewhere doing nothing with the skills and talents that I have. So for me, I have that spiritual and outlook, that height of a consciousness of something higher and bigger than us, that to serve. And at the end, what it all boils down to then is to serving humanity. I believe, like, the best way I can serve my creator is by serving humanity, my fellow human beings. That's what I think life is all about. It's just like serving and one another, and bringing more love and harmony into the world. So it's about love. Really. Yeah.
Thank you, Asifa. And then my final question to you guys is just simply, are there any special intentions that you would like to offer up at this time? Anyone who would you like to pray for us to pray for? So yeah, please lift them up right now.
This isn't anybody that I know personally, but I did just hear about it today. This a mom here in Rochester who was literally just thrown out of her house with her kids right before Christmas. They had, in the middle of the night, I guess they came and what do you call the marshals? I guess they come and they like take you out of your house because she was behind on rent. It's the middle of a pandemic, and there were some issues with the landlord with the code violation. So they were, I guess, withholding rent until that was taken care of. And I don't know if it's made the news yet. It's kind of making the waves on social media, where just right now in the middle of like it's 6 days before Christmas and it's freezing cold in the middle of winter during a pandemic, her and her children were just unceremoniously thrown out of their home. So I'd like to just pray for them, pray for some guidance, pray for some, you know, something just to help them out and help them find their way to navigate this. So that's who I'd like to offer prayers to.
Thank you. Anyone else? For me, I would like to offer up my family in prayer. This is the first Christmas that I will not be with them. because of COVID-19. And so I'm decided, like, I'm not going to travel back home because I don't want to put anyone at risk. Like, even if I don't catch the virus, I don't want to pass it on to them if I were to catch it from someone on the plane. And so even though this Christmas is different for me, I just want to keep them, you know, just lifted up and just continuing to just, you know, reach out to them and just checking in on them. So I'm really excited that, you know, even though COVID has forced us to do things differently, like just communication with my family has like heightened. I mean, just, you know, we make time to check in with each other. And so that's something that I'm grateful for. And so just offering my family up in prayer and my friends back home too. Like Taylor's in New Orleans right now and she's going to be coming up to Maryland soon. So hopefully I get to see her and hang out with her. So, but yeah, those are my intentions. And anyone else, like from the general audience, would like to offer up someone in prayer, please do so. Yes, Michelle. Offer up my family and new grandson who will be here no later than the 23rd. That's so close. Congratulations to the new addition that will be coming to your family. And Michelle also said to all those who are unable to be with family this year, this pandemic will be over soon. Yes. And I think I am going to get the vaccine when it becomes available. And that's just me. But before we end, I want to turn it over to Shades founder and publisher, Michelle FITZHUGH-CRAIG.
Hey everyone, I was still typing in the chat, so sorry. I just want to thank everyone today. This was great. Each time we go into a real talk, we started in July, it's like, how can this be any better? And we just keep outdoing ourselves. And it's not because of me. I want to thank our real crew, the ladies that are with us today, Sharkisha, Asifa, MARIAN, and Tayler, who joined us for the first time today, and LYNDSEY, who's not with us. She had something to do, but Sydney, most definitely, you carry this through for 2 hours once a month and just really help us all engage and think about things that maybe we don't all the time and express them. So thank you so much for today, and for our participants who joined in and listened in. I think I happen to know everyone personally, and I just thank you so much. And I know who you are and your spirit, and I hope you learned something or able to gain or pass it on from today's talk. If you have questions that come to mind later or comments, have ideas for future topics, and or if you'd like to be a part of Shades Magazine, the team or a member of Exceptional Women in Publishing, please contact us at infoshadesmagazine@gmail.com or DM us at any of our social media accounts, and I'm putting those in just a second. And a final reminder that today's discussion was recorded and will be uploaded for viewing and sharing beginning Tuesday. Additionally, the opinions, viewpoints, and or personal endorsements expressed in any of our published print, audio, or video content does not necessarily represent the views of Shades Magazine or Exceptional Women in Publishing. As I turn it back to Sydney, I just want to wish each of you happy holidays, whatever you celebrate, and don't be alone, even if you've got to call someone virtually and just be with them and share and be grateful for what is around us and what we have, and that this higher power has guided you specifically to this point in time. And I just wish you all the best. So, Sydney.
Thank you, Michelle. As you know, I always like to end with a quote, I think, that relates to the topic at hand. And so I found a quote from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who said, "Learn to get in touch with the silence within yourself and know that everything in this life has a purpose. There are no mistakes, no coincidences. All events are blessings given to us to learn from." And with that being said, I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. And as Michelle said, happy holidays. Wishing you safety, happiness, love, joy, and all of those good things. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Bye, y'all.
Everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.